Welcome back, you guys. Today we're going to be talking about the American Revolution. We're going to start off with the origins, the causes that led to the 13 colonies, which, as you know, would eventually become the United States, breaking up with the British Empire. So we're going to see that slow separation between those two regions, the 13 colony and the British, and you're going to see them sort of eventually go to war, going from brothers to fighting with each other. Okay, so today we'll be using Nearpod to learn today's lesson. We'll be learning about the Ohio River Valley, George Washington. We'll get to introduce him and how he started this war between the French and the British, and the Albany Plan, which was created by Benjamin Franklin. There is a link right here that you will click on. It's student pays. In case you do not attend my live session, click on it and do it because it is part of your grade and it will help you understand the material way better. Okay, so once you click on the link, you should see something like this, right? And this is just a preview of the questions that you'll be having and the things you'll be seeing. For example, in this one, it'll ask, what is the continent? What continent is this? You click on it. And if you look at the title, it tells you the continent. All you have to do is put the answer and then go on to the next one. And you'll be doing that for every single question, right? Let's do one more together and then I'll let you do the rest on your own. What three countries are claiming land in North America? So we should be familiar with them. The ones in green, orange, and red are the British, French, and Spanish. And there's about two more questions like that. And that's all you're gonna do. You're just gonna answer those questions. Now I'm gonna move on and allow you to do the rest on your own. What I do want to talk to you about is the World Cup. Some of you might be familiar with the World Cup. Some of you may not. The World Cup is where countries compete for a trophy every 4 years. It's a soccer event. It's one of the biggest events in the world. If not, some would say it's the biggest event in the world. And the winner not only gets the trophy, but they get national pride and national glory, which is going to bring us to the topic of today. Countries have always been competing with one another. Now we do it in sports, but back then we used to do it in war. Even today, we still do it in war. But back then it was even more dominant in war and for glory. We're always trying to be the better country or the best one ever. It's in our DNA. It's stuck in us, right? So going back to what we were talking about in the colonial times, the English, the French, and the Spanish are going to be fighting over land. And one of the lands that is going to be fought over is the land right in between the 13 colonies, which is owned by the English, and the New France, which is owned by the French. So that land right in between them is going to be disputed. And we'll talk about why that land is being fought over. Anyways, the name of that land is called the Ohio River Valley. By the way, just if you're curious to compare how many people are watching football versus soccer in the World Cup, they get up to 500 million views. And the Super Bowl, at the most, they get 160. Just so you can see how big these events are. And again, it's all because you're competing with one another. You have nation versus nation. Who's the better one? You're gonna have some poll questions you need to answer. They're not too complicated. So remember that what European country had land next to the Atlantic Ocean? You should know that one, but just in case, look at the map again, it'll give you the answer. And it is the Atlantic Ocean's right there, 13 colonies. Who owns them? The British, okay? Which I told you is another word for England, right? Again, we'll do one more and then the rest of them you'll do on your own. Catholic missions and gold mines. We've talked about this before, right? Which one of these three focus primarily on spreading Christianity and looking for gold? The one with the 5.7? That's right, Spain. It's very easy, simple stuff like that. All right, and I'll let you guys do the rest. All right, now let's talk, since we were talking about World Cup and national rivalries, let's talk about before there was soccer and football and all the sports that could be used to channel that rivalry. The British and the French, two of the biggest countries that we talked about so far, had a really big rivalry. And the way that they handled their rivalry was by going to war. All right. The British and the French hated each other for centuries. At one point, the British and the French fought for 81 years. Right. They dubbed this war the 100-Year War, which is very close, right? They're just rounding it off. But imagine that 81 years of fighting someone. And that's how deep the hatred went. So when they start to explore and colonize, clearly the British and the French are going to be competing with one another and trying to see who has the most land in North America, right? They're trying to compete with one another. They want to see who can get the most resources, who can get the most money, who can get the most land. So when they have to argue over this piece of land called the Ohio River Valley, you will soon see how easy it's going to be to instigate another war between them. Now, the people that are stuck in between this rivalry, the ones that are stuck in the middle, friends with both, allied with both, would be the Native Americans. Now, most of the Native Americans, though, are going to stick with the French. Remember what I told you. The French practiced friendly behavior with the natives because they needed them to trade for fur. So they're going to have a good relationship with the natives. So the French are going to stick with the natives and the natives will stick with the French. And we'll talk about why the Native Americans choose not to side with the British for the most part. Again, a couple of poll questions here for you guys. Let's do this one real quick. Fur, fish, friendship with Native Americans. Hint on the F, right? F for friendly, F for fur, F for friends. All right. One more and then we'll move on again. Remember to do these questions. I'm not doing them because I want you to try it on your own. So who was practicing mercantilism? For this one, they all were. It only lets me pick one, but any of them that you pick will work. And remember that mercantilism is very simple. Mercantilism is a system that the three countries were using to make money out of the colonies. All right. And mercantilism is simple. The colonies provide raw materials to the mother country, to Spain, France, or England. And then they in return create those raw materials into some finished product. Like if you provide them wood, they would make tables, and then they would send those tables back to you and sell them for a profit. So any of those three work. All right. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the 17, let's talk about the Ohio River Valley, sorry. And you can look at a picture right there. You can see sort of what that looks like. Hold on, give me 1 second. Never mind, I was trying to find a pointer so I could like circle it. But anyways, you can see the river, that's the Ohio River, by the way, and the valley right next to it. That's why it's called the Ohio River Valley. And what was there was a vast amount of land and resources. One of the biggest things, obviously, was fur. Now, remember that the French were already there trading with the Native Americans and making a crazy profit out of it. The British are going to see that, especially the 13 colonies, and they're going to start wanting to get involved in that. So the land is going to be fought by the French and the British. The irony of it all, the funny thing about it all, is that is that this land already was owned by the Native Americans, like people who already lived there. But the French and the British are going to completely ignore that and just lay claims on it, and they're going to fight each other for who gets to keep it. And again, the resources was the biggest reasons why. Now, why did the Native Americans choose to ally with the French beyond that good relationship that they had? Why didn't they just give the British a chance? Well, you have to understand the colonists had been living there for a while, and we call this area where the natives live and the colonists are in the border, the back country, which is again the Ohio River Valley. And I won't bore you too much with it, but the the British and the colonists had a very bad relationship with the natives. Remember, they came in here to stay and take land and farm and just create homes from other people's home. That's what the British and the colonists did. They took their land, they took the Native American land, they took their resources. So they're not going to be very fond of the British. The Native Americans are going to hate them for the most part. And they're going to hate the colonists too because they're going to have a real toxic relationship where the colonists take advantage of the Native Americans retaliate, then the colonists attack them. And it's just a very negative relationship. And not to say that the French were perfect, but they were the lesser of the two evils as far as the Native Americans were concerned. I found the pointer, by the way, guys. All right, you're gonna have a quick little quiz about what we just talked about. Why did both France and Britain want the Ohio River Valley? Easy, vast amount of resources. And first, we just talked about it. To capture and enslave Native American tribes and use as a labor for plantations. Nope, incorrect. I'll let you answer the next one on your own. Where the Native Americans chose to ally with the French. Hopefully you know that one. It's pretty easy. Just went over it. Okay, so while that's happening, while the French and the British are fighting over the Ohio River Valley, the Indians are growing increasingly concerned about the colonists starting to slowly take over their land, all right? And you can see this picture right here. This is where the colonists were, and this is the Ohio River Valley right here. So the natives lived there, and they were not too happy with seeing the British and the colonists kind of starting to slowly take over that area. So in response to that, and in order to protect their homes, the natives will set up a series of attacks on the 13 colonies to keep them from their home. All right. So to simplify it, the natives are pretty much going to be defending their backyard. Imagine you're in your home and then some random people come to your backyard and they start building their home there. And they're like, well, I'm gonna live here now. Thanks. So it would seem very, very weird and you would want them out of there. And that's just kind of what the natives wanted. They wanted them out of there. So the Native Americans will attack to protect their home. And of course, the colonists are going to be aggravated by this and they're going to meet up like they do, right? Because remember, the king is not there to help them. So they have to solve this problems themselves. And they're going to meet, and there's going to be the first attempt of the 13 colonies trying to come together, right? And Benjamin Franklin, this meeting, by the way, is called the Albany Congress. And Benjamin Franklin, who's very involved in this Albany Congress, is going to propose a plan. In that plan, he suggested that the 13 colonies, rather than acting as individual colonies, should join together and form a military to protect themselves against the French and the Native Americans who are constantly attacking them. To be fair, though, the Native Americans were only reacting to what the colonists were doing. But Benjamin Franklin did bring a point. If we come together, if we join all 13 colonies, and I'm talking about all of New England, New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina, they all join together, we have a better chance of winning this. So either we join or we die. And that's how drastic Benjamin Franklin thought it was for people to join together. At the end, the Albany Plan, by the way, that's what it's called, the Albany Plan, was not approved. And he sort of showed that the 13 colonies were not ready to be unified. That idea of unity that had come from the Great Awakening was still not fully polished. So that was the Albany Plan. By the way, this picture right here is our first American political cartoon. And a political cartoon is a cartoon that describes problems or things that are happening in society or in our government. So it's a cartoon that describes problems that we're having in society or something that's happening in our government. Join or die. All right. And the last thing that we're going to talk about today is the involvement of George Washington, a very young and inexperienced George Washington. So remember, the Ohio River Valley was in dispute. Right next to it were the 13 colonies, right? Right here. And this is the area they were fighting over. And right here were the French. So as they're slowly moving in this area, they're going to slowly collide with one another. So the Virginia governor, that's where George Washington lived, sent George Washington on an expedition to tell the French to leave this area right here called the Ohio Company of Virginia. This territory right here where the Fort Duquesne is, or Fort Serenity is located, right here was area that was being claimed by Virginia and the French. So the Washington's going to come with 100 soldiers, 100 plus soldiers, some Native Americans, and they're going to come in there. And the order was to not engage. Just go there, tell them, hey, this is our land, get out of here, and then report with what they said. Washington, though, a little eager, young, and young and dumb and full of violence, Washington is going to accidentally engage in a battle with the French. He's going to provoke a sort of fight with the French. At the time, though, Washington was not aware that the French were not there to fight. In fact, there were diplomats that were there to talk to him, right, or to talk to the people in the 13 colonies and try to figure out how to divide the land that they were fighting over. So they were there on a peaceful mission. But Washington's not going to be aware of that. So they're going to jump the gun. They're going to fight each other. And within the fight, the French will surrender and try to tell them like, hey, listen, we're here to talk. We're here to negotiate. And while Washington's trying to control his troops, the Native Americans that he brought with him are going to lose their mind a little bit. Well, not lose their mind. They're going to practice what they've been practicing forever, which is when you capture the enemy, when you defeat the enemy, you make an example out of the enemy. So the warriors, the Native American warriors, are going to start murdering the prisoners and scalping them. And scalping, if you don't know what that is when they remove your head, your hair. Sorry, your hair. They skin you, sort of. It's a very violent thing to do, but it's part of the traditions of warriors. That they felt that if they could take their hair from them, they were, almost absorbing their powers, their energy to make them better warriors. It was just part of what they believed in, part of the tradition. And Washington was not very aware of that. So when he sees the Native Americans do this, he tries to stop them, but it's a little too late. And that's going to sort of lead to the French and the British eventually going to war. And we call this war the French and Indian War. It's a little confusing because it seems like the French and the Indian are fighting each other. Aren't they friends? They are friends. We call it the French and Indian War because that's what we're fighting. It's a war against the French and the Indians. And the French and the Indians are fighting the British and the colonists. If you get a chance, watch this video right here. It's a really good reenactment of what happened with George Washington and the Native Americans when they went to try to talk to the French to get out of their land. This is the fort, by the way, where they were involved, where the battle happened. And again, you get a couple of questions here and there that you may answer. We'll do a couple together just so you can get the idea. Who created this political cartoon? Look at the picture, click on it. Illustrated by Benjamin Franklin. Illustrated means drawn by. Drawn by Benjamin Franklin. Easy. All right, let me go to the last question. Who was sent by Governor of Virginia, by the way, this guy right here? Who was this guy? He was sent by the Governor of Virginia to settle a dispute of land between the French and the British near the Ohio River Valley. Hint, the $1 bill, y'all. Who's this guy? This young man in the dollar bill eventually. He'll become your first president. That's right. George Washington. George is going to be a big name. We'll talk about the other big George that will be involved in this whole affair. All right, but bear with me. All right, so we're done for the day. The only thing that you're left to do, my fellow my beautiful class, is to click on the exit ticket and do the American Revolution Day 1 exit ticket. It is 10 questions. Very easy, very brief, and they all have to do with the American Revolution Day 1 Nearpod. In fact, I got a lot of questions from there, so you want to pay attention to that. Anyways, thank you guys so much. Hope to see you in the live session. If not, make sure that you do the Nearpod. Click on the link right here. Student paste. It will help a lot, I promise. All right, have a great day. I will see you next time.